Okay, finally, okay, have we been successful? And in trying to assess the group's success, I'm going to draw on the work of my friend David Graeber, who wrote a good article called "The Shock of Victory" that you may have come across. And he's basically, he's saying, okay, we have to also be able to celebrate our victories and locate them. And he just tries to kind of divide goals according to short, medium, and long term and see what we get. So if we're talking about, short-term goals, it would be something like halting construction of a particular section of the fence, or, shutting down a particular summit, okay? Medium-term goals, building a joint struggle, eroding, for us chiefly Israeli support for the fence. So building an anti-capitalist movement, discrediting the WTO and IMF and so on. Long-term, well, the usual. So how are we doing? Well, short-term, hard to see any achievements really. I mean, the first part of the wall is complete, right? It's there. We haven't stopped it. Where in the 4 cases where villages did get back their land, or where changes in the route of defense were forced, that happened through the Supreme Court. So through that kind of non-anarchist form of action was more effective, actually, than the direct actions in terms of actually changing the route of the wall. In the case of Bil'in, by the way, if people are not updated, basically what happened was that they managed to, they proved basically that the route of the barrier there was planned not in consideration of the current security needs of the adjacent settlement, but the security needs of the future expansion of that settlement, which they then started to build once the wall was there. And as a result, that prevailed on the Israeli Supreme Court to recognize that this wasn't just a security measure. It wasn't legitimate security needs. Because you're not going to get a verdict from the Israeli Supreme Court based on The Hague and based on humanitarian and international law, right? You're going to have, but this thing was possible to get past the court. And then they told the Ministry of Defense to supply a new route. They didn't do that for 8 months. They filed for contempt of court. This is like the village. And then the Ministry of Defense gave an alternative route, which was almost no difference, and the court threw it out. And they gave another one, the court threw that out. And now they've given a third route that responds to a proposed route that was given by the village with help of sympathetic planners and Israeli comrades, and that is now on the table, and that's going to return to the village like maybe half of the land that it was that was taken away from it. So that's about 30 out of the 60% of the original land of the village. But it was through the Supreme Court anyway. Also, long-term, hard to see anything really on the horizon. Like, we've just had the most right-wing government elected in Israel, and it's not very clear when things will stop getting worse. Maybe we've made them get worse slower. But anyway, it's hard to see. On the other hand, the medium term, we've done a lot, I think. First of all, a new paradigm for this type of confrontation has been established. The presence of internationals and Israelis has managed to de-escalate military violence in those unarmed civilian joint struggle parts of the Palestinian spectrum of resistance. The military won't just randomly shoot people with live ammo at these protest events. They'll still, they'll bring out these high-speed tear gas canisters like Tristan got in his head earlier in the year. And these things are still going to happen, but they're going to be an exception, not the norm. So that's, it's an achievement. Secondly, the joint struggle has become a norm. The idea that Palestinians and Israelis together are protesting against the occupation is no longer something unheard of. It's no longer something that is amazing. It's just how things are done, at least in, with part of it. And I think that's been an important thing. It's really created a new phase in terms of resistance to the occupation. The third thing, well, it's the only quantitative datum I can bring you, and you can't really see it on screen, but if you look at opinion polls at the percentage of Israelis who oppose the fence in principle, not just its route, so that's risen in the past, in like between 2003, from 6.8 became 12.8 in 2008. So from nothing to nothing, I don't know if it's really meaningful or statistically significant, but like it's a number that I could put on the screen. And finally, and most importantly, I think, the land confiscating dimension of this whole project has become clear. I think today, if you talk to like mainstream Israelis who know anything about anything, they'll admit that it's grabbing lots of land. They might justify it, but they won't deny it anymore. So that's something that, you know, has really managed to penetrate the understanding of a lot of the Jewish Israeli public, despite, you know, the way it's like really a small thing trying to counterbalance a big government propaganda machine, but we've done something. So I'm just going to close with this quote from an Israeli participant in the Masha camp. Since we can remember, we have been brainwashed with hatred and fear of our Palestinian neighbors. We were told that our hand is extended for peace, but there is no one to talk to. But these lies were exposed and are clear for everyone who participates in the actions against the occupation to see. We have slept together beneath the olive trees before they were uprooted. We have marched together to the fence, and we will continue to struggle together, Israelis, Palestinians, and internationals, for justice and equality for all.